Hello and welcome. Today we're going to break down the essential legal safety nets that protect millions of workers all across India. Whether you're in a big office, a factory, or even working for yourself, there are laws designed to have your back. So let's dive right in.
These are the questions that really hit home for anyone who works. You put in the time, you invest your energy, but what security do you really have? These aren't just ideas. They're about loyalty, about family, and that basic need for stability. And the answers, as we'll see, are written right into India's laws.
So here's our plan for this explainer. We're going to start with a reward for your hard work and loyalty. Then we'll look at how new mothers are supported. After that, we'll cover the huge group of workers without formal jobs. And finally, we'll tie it all together to see why these laws are so important. First up, loyalty. What does the law have to say about rewarding you for sticking with a company long-term? Well, that brings us straight to the Payment of Gratuity Act from 1972, which was created to do exactly that.
So what is gratuity, really? Think of it like this. It's a financial thank you from your boss that's required by law. It's a one-off, lump sum payment you get for the service you put in over the years. And the key thing to remember is, this isn't some optional bonus, it's your legal right.
And here it is, the magic number. To be eligible for gratuity, you typically need to have worked for the same employer for at least 5 continuous years. That's the main threshold. Now, it's worth knowing there are some exceptions. For example, that 5-year rule doesn't apply in the tragic case of an employee's death or disablement.
You might be wondering, does this apply to me? Well, the coverage is actually pretty broad. It includes all kinds of places like factories and ports. But the big rule that catches most people is the second one. It applies to any shop or establishment that has 10 or more employees. And that last point, that is a critical protection. Once a company is big enough to be covered, it stays covered even if its team shrinks below 10 later on.
So is it possible to lose your gratuity? The short answer is yes, but only for really serious reasons, like if you intentionally damaged company property or were violent. And even then, it can only be forfeited up to the cost of the damage. But, and this is a big but, an employer can't just withhold your gratuity for common issues, like taking too long to move out of company housing. The law protects it as something you've earned. All right, let's move to our next pillar of support. We've talked about rewarding service. Now let's talk about supporting people through one of life's biggest events, starting a family. How does the law protect working mothers? That brings us to the Maternity Benefit Act of 1961. Just look at that number. This is a total game changer. The act guarantees women 26 weeks, that's half a year, of fully paid maternity leave for their first 2 children. This isn't just time away from work, it's paid leave, based on your average wage, so you have financial stability when you need it most.
And the law is flexible about how you use this time. You can start your leave up to 8 weeks before your due date, leaving the rest of the time for after the baby arrives, for recovery and bonding. It's really structured to support the health of both the mother and the child.
But the support doesn't end there. This is where the act gets really impressive. It's so much more than just leave. It gives 12 weeks of leave to mothers adopting a young child. It guarantees nursing breaks during the workday. It even requires larger companies to provide a daycare facility. On top of that, there's a medical bonus and even the option to work from home. It's a whole package of support. So far, everything we've talked about applies to people in formal, organized jobs. But what about everybody else? I'm talking about the millions of people working without formal contracts, in tiny shops, or for themselves. That is where our third law comes in, the Unorganized Workers Social Security Act of 2008. Just let that number sink in. 93%. That's a staggering statistic. It means that the 2 very important laws we just discussed, they actually don't apply to the vast majority of India's working population. This act was created to try and close that massive gap. So who are we talking about here? Well, the law defines this group very broadly. Basically, it's anyone who's self-employed, works from home, or works for a business with fewer than 10 people. The definition is intentionally wide, trying to create a huge safety net for everyone who might otherwise fall through the cracks. And the sheer variety of workers here is just immense. We're talking about construction workers and small farmers, domestic workers and street vendors, I mean, these are the people who keep the everyday economy running. This act was designed for every single one of them. So how does it all work? It's basically a registration system. The government creates different welfare programs. Any worker over the age of 14 can register with their local administration and get a smart ID card. That card is basically your key, unlocking access to all these Social Security benefits.
And the security being offered is the real deal. It's incredibly comprehensive. You have the central government providing this core foundation, things like life and disability insurance, health benefits, and old age protection. Then, state governments can build on top of that, adding schemes for things like housing, education for kids, or even job training.
Okay, so we've looked at 3 very different laws, each for a different situation. Now let's pull back and see how they all fit together to create a bigger picture of Social Security in India.
I think the best way to see these laws is not as separate, random rules, but as 3 interconnected pillars. Each one supports a different part of the workforce at a different stage of their life or career. Together, they aim to build a much stronger, more stable foundation for everyone. You can almost see the story playing out right here. We start with the Gratuity Act, which is focused on a pretty narrow group of formal employees. Then, the Maternity Act broadens that support. And finally, the Unorganized Workers Act just throws the doors wide open, trying to bring that huge 93% into the system. It's a clear journey towards more and more inclusion.
And that brings us to one last crucial thought. These laws were built for the economies of the past. But today, the world of work is changing, and it's changing fast, with the gig economy, remote work, and automation reshaping everything. So the big question we're left with is this: how do these safety nets need to change to protect the workers of tomorrow? Thanks for joining this explainer.